Yo, what is going on, guys? It's C-Brab. Welcome to another MLB The Show 20 video. Stage 2 of Team Affinities are out. We have 30 new future stars in the game, and you guys usually like when I rank these cards and talk about which ones look the best to me, so that's what this video is going to be. Obviously, I haven't used any of them yet, but we're going to follow the same process that we did with Face of the Franchise in Stage 1 Team Affinities. This is kind of like a pre-rankings, just how I think the cards look on paper. Then we will do individual card review videos for each of these 30 future stars, and then once I'm done with all that, I will re-rank them according to how I performed with them. So stay tuned for all that content. I appreciate all the support you guys have shown me. Just a couple disclaimers ahead of time. Given that these guys are prospects, I'm probably going to mispronounce a lot of their names because I haven't been following the minor leagues closely. So if I mispronounce a guy's name, give me a break. Maybe drop it in the comment. Drop a comment down below telling me how to say his name. That might help me out for a future video, but don't give me crap if I mispronounce someone's name. Also, I try to do these pre-rankings as a perfect bell curve, meaning the smallest number of players on the best and worst side, and then a lot of players towards the middle. So the way I laid it out was we're going to go S tier, then A, B, C, D, S tier being the best, D being the worst. We got 4 players in S tier and D tier, then 6 players in A tier and C tier, and then finally 10 players in B tier right in the middle. If a guy's A and you think he should be S, or if a guy's C and you think he should be D, keep in mind these are very borderline, and I kind of just laid it out that way to make it easier for you guys. And also when I lay it out this way, it gives you a top 10 for me between S tier and A tier. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. We'll start off with the 4 guys in S tier, in my opinion. First card for S tier, and probably, in my opinion, the best card in the entire set of 30 future stars, Brew Han from the Tampa Bay Rays. For what this card is, the way he looks on paper, this card is borderline end game for me. That's how good I think this card is. Switch hitter with better stats versus righties, which is what you want from switch hitters because they face righties more than lefties. Almost 90 fielding, which is almost diamond in game, but still 89 fielding, really good. 95 speed, 95 steal, amazing. And then he can play both spots up the middle and center field. Between the positional versatility, the switch hitting, the fielding, the speed, if this guy's swing is glitchy, that'll just be adding on top of it with the exit velocities. I really think this guy is borderline in-game for the archetype of player that he is. This card looks completely amazing, just a much better version of Mondesi in pretty much every way, and he can play center field also, which not only allows you for versatility before the game, but also with pinch hitting in the game, which is something that a lot of people don't think about. I think you can platoon like a second baseman and an outfielder if you want to play this guy in center field, stuff like that, a little creative stuff. Next in S tier, second guy, this one's pretty obvious. Everyone's been raving about this card. We got Rusdar Gratterall from the Los Angeles Dodgers, so this card looks amazing. Just throwing absolute gas. He does have the outlier quirk. I've seen his sinker get up to 101 miles an hour from someone else using the card. Obviously his fastball gets up to 101 as well, and I've seen his slider get a ton of break. If you can control this guy, he's going to be nasty. Even if you can't control this guy, he'll probably still be really nasty on Legend and probably Hall of Fame for most people. Card looks amazing. Anytime you got someone throwing 101 mile an hour sinkers, probably a pretty good card. Next up, also not a surprise here in S tier, we got Nolan Gorman from the St. Louis Cardinals. This card is just a better version of Eddie Matthews in every way, and I was a huge fan of Eddie Matthews. I've always liked power hitting left-handed corner infielders, specifically at third base, because before this promo, it was typically a pretty rare thing. We were working with Eddie Matthews, Chipper Jones, if you want to count him, Wade Boggs, guys like that. Now we got 2 of these types of guys in these future stars. So Gorman looks amazing. I've also heard that his swing is really good. Cracked numbers versus righties, good enough numbers versus lefties, and that's what I really think separates him and Eddie Matthews. The evolution card is what I'm talking about, is his contact and power much higher versus lefties, so when he's hitting at a disadvantage, it's not going to be as big of a disadvantage for this card. So I really, really like this Gorman card. And then finally, honestly didn't hear a lot of people hyping this card up before these cards were released, but this Taylor Tramel, I'm assuming it's Tramel because it's 2 M's and 2 L's. Could be Tramel. I don't know, like I said. This might be one of my favorite cards in the game. So I think Brew Han is probably the closest to endgame, but I think this guy's right up there with him. You guys know, if you've watched my content before, that I value arm strength hardly at all. I think it's one of the last attributes that I care about when evaluating a player. And really the only reason this card is low is because of his power versus left and his arm strength. So I don't really care about arm strength. If you forget about the arm strength, this is a guy that's going to have 94 speed and hit for power versus righties. He's got 90 fielding, so he's going to be a diamond defender in the outfield with that speed. He's going to be able to run everything down. And then still 69 power, very nice power versus lefties. He's still going to be able to get it done, at least maybe put a ball in the gap if you put a good swing on it. So huge fan of this card. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Ty Cobb. This looks like kind of like the Ty Cobb archetype, but with even more power than the headliner Ty Cobb that we've had this year has. So I really like this Taylor Tramel. Moving on into A tier, keep in mind I only have some of these guys A tier because I only wanted 4 cards in S tier. Some of these A tier guys are really good as well. Also, by the time I finish A tier, that will be 10 cards, so there's my top 10 if you want to look at it that way. First off, LeDoux Lowe. This card looks really good. His per 9s are high, his stamina's high, he throws a sinker, he's left-handed, he's got slider changeup. This card looks nasty, honestly. He's also got Trevor Cahill's delivery, which is kind of glitchy online. So, card looks really good. I also think we'll see an uptick in the value of left-handed pitchers if people tend to start filling their lineups with a lot of these left-handed bats that we got from Future Stars. So there's a point in the meta in the future if people over-adjust that this card can become really valuable. But as it stands right now, A-tier player for me, but I really, really like LeDoux Lowe. Next up is Nolan Jones, just a slightly worse version of Nolan Gorman for me. Way more power versus left, I think 4 more power and a little less contact, so a little bit better of a power hitter, but he does have way more arm strength, which will be nice at third base. You can also play him in the outfield. I don't know how I'd feel about that because his fielding would be about 75 and his speed is 45, but we shall see. But just a great power hitter, just slightly worse than Gorman in my opinion. Next up, one of the most exciting cards for the meta, I think, is this Jazz Chisel from the Marlins. Left-handed hitting middle infielders are kind of rare, and we got a lot of them in these Future Stars. So having a left-handed power hitter at shortstop is really good for the meta. Unfortunately, if the rumors are true, we will have Player of the Month Didi Gregorius coming down the pipeline, but this card will probably be better than him anyway. He's got the fielding, he's got the speed, he hits left-handed, he's going to crush righties, he's still got good power versus left. Huge fan of this card. Allows you to platoon guys at positions like shortstop and second base that typically don't have platoon options because most of them are right-handed hitters. So great card for the meta. Next in A tier, I really like Brandon Marsh. A lot of people really like Brandon Marsh. Again, just great left-handed hitter. Over 80 power versus right, which is what you want to see. Great defense, great speed. Still holds his own against lefties. Not much to say there. There's a lot of cards that are kind of the same archetype in this stuff, especially the outfielders. Second to last guy in A tier, I really like Kyle Wright. Per 9's pushing 100, stamina pushing 100 as well. The four-seamer can gas up to 98, and I like that his curveball is in the 80s. I like hard curveballs over loopy curveballs this year, and his slider can get up to 89. So good speed differential, throws gas, has a sinker, good per 9s. Really like Kyle Wright. And then rounding out A tier for myself, kind of a weird pick because you guys know I don't care a whole lot about defense at the corner infield, but this is defense that you can't not talk about. This guy is very unique in the meta right now, probably the only card of his type until we get a better Brooks Robinson. You can mention Matt Chapman as well, but Matt Chapman doesn't have the speed or the hitting stats that this guy has. Almost perfect fielding at third base, absolutely crazy, and he carries 83 speed, and he can hold his own at the plate, over 60 power versus both sides, and pretty good contact. This card is insane. Like I said, usually I don't care about defense at third base, but this is almost perfect defense, so this card has to be an A tier in my opinion because There's really no other card like him in the game right now. Moving on to B tier, gonna try to work a little quicker now to try to get through this video faster for you guys. I'm sure most of you guys just cared about the S tier and A tier guys. But there's 10 guys in B tier, so we're gonna bust through them quick. I like Mountcastle, great hitter, kind of sketchy defense, but decent speed as well. All 3 of the first basemen I actually put in B tier because they look okay. Daleks a third baseman, but he can play first. Sorry for saying it, first baseman. This card looks nice. I like that he has reverse splits. 109 power versus right is a lot, and he has amazing fielding. We'll see how that contact plays online, especially on Legend. Evan White, very unique card as well. Pretty good hitter, but amazing fielding, and 80 speed at first base is really fast for a traditional first baseman, so doesn't quite hit 80 power versus right. I think that may hurt him a little bit, but as I said, we will see when we're trying these cards out. All 3 of those first basemen look pretty decent to me. Also, I want to say, just because I rate a guy B, C, or D, that doesn't mean I think he's bad. It just means compared to the other cards of the future stars, he's not as good. So even like the D tier cards that I'm going to go over are still better than a lot of options outside of these future stars, so keep that in mind. Next up, Clark Schmidt. I could see this guy definitely going above B tier depending on how he pitches, because I really like his pitch repertoire, and he seems to have a pretty glitchy delivery. He doesn't have as high per nines as some of the other pitchers in the future stars, but we'll see. Clark Schmidt in B tier, Dane Dunning in B tier as well. Probably just a worse version of Clark Schmidt, honestly. We'll see how Dane Dunning does. Next in B tier, Alex Kirilloff, I think is how you say his name. I wish this card had a little more power for like a slow first baseman archetype. I wish he had a little more power. Like Chisel has more power versus right than this card, so a little concerning. We'll see how his swing is. Luckily, he does have over 80 fielding to kind of compensate for the lack of power. Could be a solid card. Not expecting a whole lot from him though. Next in B tier, we got Andrejs Jimenez. I think it's Jimenez. Pretty similar to Chisel, just not as much power, which is why he's a tier lower. Good fielding, good speed though. This card could be really nice, really good guy to set the table for your lineup, so we'll see how he plays. Also, Luis Garcia next up in B tier could be pretty good. Really good splits versus righties, over 80 power versus righties, which is something you want to see. 80 fielding, can play third and short. Not expecting a whole lot from this card, but this is definitely one of those cards that could perform well if he has a glitchy swing, so we shall see. Also, Alec Thomas. I really wanted to put this guy in A tier, but there just wasn't any room, and I think he's the worst of the 3 left-handed outfielders, but this card still looks amazing. Great speed, great fielding, great reaction, good power versus righties. You're going to face righties a lot. The left, power versus left is a little concerning. It's not over 60, so that's kind of why I had to put him in B tier, but overall still looking like a really solid card. And then finally in B tier, we got Ramos. I'm not entirely sure how to say his first name, but this is just a pretty solid card all around. Kind of looks like Brian Anderson with his splits to me, but obviously more power. Really just he's got all 5 tools like above average. There's not one that stands out, but they're all right above 80. Good contact, good power, good fielding, good speed. Could be a really good card if he has a glitchy swing as well. Moving into the back end of these rankings now, we're going to move into the 6 guys in C tier. Starting off with Josh Young. This card looks pretty decent to me on paper, just not as good as the other third baseman options you have from future stars. Decent fielding. I really don't like that his power is below 80 versus right. I think that may hurt him a lot, but good card if you can get him up against the lefty. Next up, this pains me to say, some people may even think he's D tier, but I put him in C, is Jorge Matteo. If this guy didn't have 99 speed, he would definitely be in D tier. But he's got the same thing that Brew Han has, which is good positional versatility and good speed. Unfortunately, his 2 worst stats are the 2 most important stats in the game right now, which is contact versus right and power versus right. This card really needs to have a good swing to be able to do anything at the plate. So we'll see what happens, but I'm not having high expectations for this card. Luckily, he does have 99 speed, 98 stealing to kind of give him a chance. And for you cheesers out there, his bunt ratings are pretty low too, so I don't know if he'll work for you guys either. Remains to be seen. Next up in C tier, this card honestly is pretty close to D tier for me, but I only rated him C because he's kind of unique. in that he's a changeup primary. So we'll see how good his changeup is. We'll see how the changeup primary plays online, but Jose Urquidy does not look very good to me at all. Low hits per 9, only 4 pitches, not really good velocity, not good speed differential between his off speed. So like I said, we'll see what happens. He probably would have been D tier for me if he had a 4-seamer primary, but he does have a changeup primary, which tends to play well online. Next in C tier, we got Nico. I think it's Horner. I think it's just Horner is how you say his name. Just not a good card for the meta right now. Contact hitter, but not over 60 power versus right. Again, you're going to be facing righties most of the time. You really want to have that power over 60 since that is a mentioned threshold from SDS before the game was released. Good contact, good positional versatility. Again, the second base, shortstop, center field is good. Just not enough speed to play center. I don't know. We'll see, especially with this fielding dropping below 70, and I'm just generally not a fan of contact hitters that don't hit righties very well. So rounding out C tier, we got 2 more pitchers. First off, Brady Singer. I know people are kind of high on this card because he's got sinker slurve, but from my experience using pitchers with 4 pitches really struggle, especially when you're using them over the course of a long game against a good player, because there are so many less sequences you can work with 4 pitches instead of 5. People tend to kind of figure out your sequencing over the course of 5 or 6 innings if they get you up to 100 pitches when you only have 4 pitches to work with instead of 5. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of slurves this year. I think slurve is maybe like Kluber's borderline worst pitch. And if you miss your spot with a slurve this year, it just seems like it gets crushed, as opposed to like a traditional curveball, which I think is just a better pitch this year. So we'll see how Brady Singer is. He also has his own unique pitching motion. So that may help him, but kind of low per 9s compared to the other guys, and just only 4 pitches and not the greatest velocity. He's only going to get it up to 95, so that's why he's in C tier. And then also in C tier, for many of the same reasons, is Adonis Medina from the Phillies. Again, not the greatest velocity. He can get it up to 96, and he does have 5 pitches, but his control ratings are pretty low, and he has a sweeping curve, which is almost a useless pitch this year. I've learned from throwing Hal's sweeping curve that you should just not throw sweeping curves, especially to guys of opposite handedness. So basically a 4-pitch pitcher. Depends on how often you want to throw the sweeping curve against righties. Definitely would not recommend throwing versus lefties, but we'll see how the card plays if he has insane break. Like I said, these are just my pre-predictions, so take everything with a grain of salt. Rounding out the list, we got the 4 guys in D tier. I'm sure this guy is no surprise to y'all. He's kind of become a meme now. This has to be easily the most disappointing future star considering how stacked the Blue Jays' young talent is. I don't know why they picked Kevin Smith. It's really a tragedy, especially considering the Blue Jays are a team that really needs like a good future star card, because I'm assuming we'll get legends in the future, and they don't have a ton of legends in game. So yeah, really disappointing card. Kevin Smith here just doesn't do anything well compared to the other guys. His reverse splits will be nice versus righties, but I don't know why you'd use this card over like someone like Jazz Chisholm, who has better stats versus righties and will have the handedness advantage and hits lefties better and is faster and has better speed, and has better fielding. You guys know what I mean. This card is just really bad. Very disappointing. Next up in D tier, another very disappointing card. This card might be the worst for me out of the entire bunch, even worse than Kevin Smith, because he doesn't even hit 80 power versus either side, and his contact versus right is only 68. This guy is not going to be able to touch righties. He's probably going to swing for contact versus lefties, and while he does have good fielding and decent speed, all 4 of the other outfielders that I've already mentioned in this list just have him beat and fielding and speed and hitting. So very poor card again from the Tigers. Pretty disappointing. Rounding out the list, the last 2 guys, couple of pitchers that I don't see being very successful online. First off, Zach Brown. Good hits per 9, but the most generic pitch repertoire in the game, and only 2-mile-an-hour difference between his 2 off-speed pitches. This guy kind of reminds me of Aaron Nola in that I'm not sure how he's going to get anyone out, especially striking people out. I don't know what this guy's out pitch is. He can only throw 96. The curveball is not above 80 miles an hour, so it's probably going to be pretty loopy. The changeup is the same speed as the curveball, so even if you have someone off balance, they're not going to be that off balance. Yeah, this card looks pretty bad to me. And then finally, rounding out the list, we got another really disappointing future star, Ryan Roloson. Just a card that's not good in the meta right now. I mentioned a lot of the time that a lot of people have stacked right-handed lineups right now because all of the XP rewards and collection rewards, aside from Mickey Mantle and Reggie Jackson, are right-handed. So a lot of people's lineups are stacked with righties. It remains to be seen if this will change, if people start adding a lot of these lefty bats from the future stars to their lineup, but left-handed pitcher, not good velocity, decent speed differential. We'll see how his pitches break. But a lefty that again doesn't really have an out pitch, at least from what I can see on paper. Just a really bad card for the way the meta is right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's gonna wrap the list up. Let me run through the list one more time and we'll drop a timestamp down in the description below. So S tier, we got Brew Han, Brewstar Gratterall, Taylor Tramel, and Nolan Gorman. A tier, we got Nick LeDoux Lowe, Nolan Jones, Jazz Chisel, Brandon Marsh, Kyle Wright, and Cabrian Hayes. B tier, Ryan Mountcastle, Bobby Dalbec, Clark Schmidt, Dane Dunning, Alex Kirilloff, Evan White, Andrejs Jimenez, Luis Garcia, Alec Thomas, and Heliot Ramos. C tier, we got Josh Young, Jorge Matteo, Jose Urquidy, Nico Horner, Brady Singer, and Adonis Medina. And finally in D tier, we got Kevin Smith, Ryan Roloson, Zach Brown, and Daz Cameron. So hope this helps you guys out deciding which of these future stars to go for. Obviously, I already said I'm going to get all 30 and review them individually, much like I did for Face of the Franchise. I appreciate you guys' support. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions about my rankings, if you want to know anything else. I'm pretty good at reading those comments, but I'll go ahead and wrap the video up here. I love all you guys, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.